Hello everyone, how's it going? It's me Nell. Today, talking to you folks, we're going to talk about appropriate practicing. As some of you may or may not know, I've been teaching music since I've been 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Whoa, shit. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. No, fuck. Okay, so I've been teaching a long time. I thought about sharing my wisdom with you guys, which I thought was pertinent because I usually don't share the secret sauce, but I decided to share something that I think will get you across the finish line of learning an instrument. I'm not a great musician. However, I know how to practice, and because I know how to practice and read music effectively, I really am able to get over things that take most of the time to do practice and focus on the small things that make the whole difference. So today we're going to go the 5 essential tips and tricks to practice your instrument and learn how to play music effectively. So first we're going to talk about mindset, a practice schedule, practicing technique. Then we're going to talk about feedback and improvement. And finally, I'm going to teach you how to track your own progress, okay? Firstly, let's start with mindset. So a lot of my students get flustered when they don't get things right. And I'm sorry to say, but not getting things right is a part of this shit, okay? You can't learn music while getting everything right every time at the first time. You're not an Asian tiger mom kids prodigy who studies at Curtis or Juilliard or goes to fancy Berkeley School of Music at What I often see is that my students, they get flustered, frustrated, and they have a lot of very negative emotions and thoughts associated with practice. And when you don't have the appropriate mindset, then your practice gets ineffective, you blame yourself, and you don't ask yourself the right questions. Practicing is all about one thing: asking yourself the right questions. For example, you practice something, you don't get it right. You have 2 options in your mind: I'm very bad at the instrument, or I'm shit, or I'm absolutely not worth the instrument I have. Or you have the other path, which is, okay, I didn't get this right. How can I improve? The minute you start asking yourself that question, how can I make this better? Then your practice will improve a lot. Having the right mindset is nothing if you don't practice enough. And I know this is hard sometimes. You have lives, you have a lot of things to do. It's like going to the gym. You need consistency. This is why I will talk to you about a practice schedule. My philosophy with practice is doing as much as I can, as often as I can. And the much is not as important as the often. So imagine, you practice once a week an hour. You won't improve much. However, you practice once a week 1 hour, or 4 times a week 15 minutes, or 6 times a week 10 minutes. I would do, if I had only an hour a week, I would do 6 times a week 10 minutes. Why is that? Because practicing is all about forming habits, especially if you're at the beginning stage of learning your instrument, where it's all about posture, how to hold the instrument, how to place your fingers around it, how to do scales, or how to do like very basic chords on the instrument. That's very important to repeat the movements, because music is all about movement, okay? It's all about movement, and it's so important to repeat those movements often so our brain can then do the work. And we have this expression in French, ça rentre dans le muscle, so it goes into the muscle, right? So you have to imagine you playing your instrument as a muscle you train. The more you train your muscle at the gym, the more it gets used to the training, and then you can, get heavier and heavier weights. So it's the same principle. It's also about having a good practice schedule, meaning you need to plan out what you will do. If you just tell yourself, okay, I will practice today, and then just goof around, it's not going to be worth your time. However, if you practice and you told yourself beforehand at the beginning of the week, you can even ask your teacher or someone around you that knows better the instrument which you should work on. What I like to do is telling myself, okay, I need to do this, and I'm reserving this amount of time for each and everything I want to practice on my instrument, or instruments in my case. Then when I practice it, I just click it out of the form. It takes the thinking out of it, and also makes it productive. Now, let's talk about practicing techniques. So, if you ask yourself the right questions, why am I doing it wrong? Then the answers are in the practicing technique. So, the first technique I really love is naming notes. I know it sucks. I know it's not easy. But when you practice, I'm going to show you an example. For example, I'm practicing Twinkle Twinkle a Star. So, I know it's a basic example, but it's very pertinent. I want to name the notes before I play them. So, A, E, E, F sharp, E, D, D, C sharp, B, A. And I'm going to repeat that. And then I'm going to try and repeat that while playing. So, A, E, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A. Why is naming the notes so important on an instrument such as the guitar, or especially the violin? When you name the notes, you remember where the notes are on your fretboard. And then you can play more complicated stuff like... Yeah, alright. So that was Isn't She Lovely? And why can I play these more complicated pieces? The answer is because I know how my fretboard works. Okay? Then, there's solfège. Either you have tabs or sheet music if you play the piano or the violin or any other instrument. It's very important to be able to follow the notes while listening to the music and sing with it. So singing the notes while pointing at the paper and pointing at the music and telling yourself, okay, I'm going to go over this. Okay, is very important. Why is that important? Same thing, because when you practice solfège, you practice also reading effectively. Okay, so you have an oral idea with your ears of what the music sounds like, and you name the notes and you follow them on the paper. So your mind really makes that connection in between what you read on your sheet music and what you hear and what you should play. And then when you practice that enough, you can anticipate. You really can anticipate reading. So why is that so useful? That's so useful because when you read the music and you hear what the music is and you name the notes, you're working on three things. You're working with your eyes, you're working with your ears, and you're working with your mouth. So the brain really makes that deep connection in between what you read and what you should play. And it, over time, when you do that over and over again, before even playing the music or attempting to playing it, firstly, you memorize what you should play in advance, which is so amazing. Especially when you have complicated pieces of music where you can't read, okay? Some hard music, you can't read it. Especially if you do orchestral music, you need to really know it beforehand. If you do like really complicated violin music, you really need to be able to anticipate what's coming. And because of that, when you have an idea of what you're supposed to play, the practice is going to be going so much better. Then, there's the scales, the chords, and everything. Honestly, I think these are very worthwhile. However, if you're going to practice a scale, if you're going to practice some chords, if you're going to practice some technique, it always, in my opinion, should be accompanied by a piece that actually uses that technique. Because I don't see the point in learning some scales and then not actually using them. Okay? So, what is more important to me is that when you practice a scale, you associate it with a piece that uses that scale. Okay? I'm going to show you some example. And the techniques I'm using on this piece are like overhand playing, and I have these nice arpeggios. So I'm working arpeggios that are associated with a piece. So this arpeggio, then this arpeggio, this one too. So I associated the arpeggios I wanted to learn, and also if I'm going to play, how do you say, this piece of music, then I'm going to work on some arpeggios, right? Because interstellar music has a lot of arpeggios, so I'm going to work on my arpeggios, right? Because I want my fingers to remember how to do arpeggios, right? I'm also going to talk about practicing in small bits. I'm going to show you why it's so important to practice in small bits. Trying to go through a song at once, the whole way through, is the best way to make sure you have errors in your playing. And when that arrives, because it's not if, it's when that arrives, these errors are going to stay in your playing. So we don't want to do that. So we're going to practice in small bits. It's easier to really see a mountain as a few steps rather than a marathon and something like that. Okay, you're not eating a whole plate of pizza by your own. You're eating pizza by slices. Okay, so imagine a pizza, you eat it by slices. You don't eat the whole pizza like this. You don't. It's the same thing with practicing. Okay, so we're going to look into that with Isn't She Lovely. So I'm going to play you the riff, and then I'm going to explain to you how I would cut it out. So we have this. Alright, so I'm not going to practice that all in one go. So what I'm going to do when I learned the piece was just separate the different parts. So we have the first part, then we have the part where we go up, and then we have this part, and then we have another part. Then another one. And then we go back to another part we already played. And then we go back to the part where we go up. And then another part where we go down. Okay, so these are the main parts of the song. However, you can even go smaller. So one part, I'm going to show you with one part how I would practice just one small bit of a song. So let's take this as an example. I would do this. And really practice a lot of times these same small bits. Until I get them perfect, and then I'm going to try and practice them in sequence, and I'm going to add more and more. So alright, so you need to play every part like so. If you play better than me, then good for you. However, I think this is the best way to practice any piece of music at any level. Okay, even some polyphia stuff like okay, so this is how I practice hard stuff. Now, feedback and improvement. Okay, a lot of people think that they can learn music on their own, and you can. However, it's always better to have a guide. I always recommend getting a teacher, especially at the beginning when you start learning an instrument. At some point you won't need one, but it's going to take one to get better fast, okay? Because when we don't have a teacher, we don't have this external view of ourselves and of the errors we make with someone who has experience and can guide us through these common errors we go through, and that can give us techniques and particular tips and tricks that are really focused on you and not on what you see everywhere on YouTube. I know YouTube is great and has a lot of value, and I try to add value myself on this platform. However, I don't think it is appropriate to only learn music through the internet. If it's the only thing you can afford, then really it's awesome, and I'm glad you've taken on this journey. But however, when you get the means to do it, it's really important to try and get at least a few lessons per year to really get better over time, and to really especially make sure you have good posture, good technique, and that you don't make errors that in the long run will stay and will make your playing harder to reach higher levels of playing. Because when we have some errors that slip in, or technique errors that slip in into our playing, it's very difficult to unlearn them, which is why I think it's very important to having feedback. If you don't have a teacher, however, and even if you do, I really recommend doing two things to track your progress, which will help you tremendously and also help you have an exterior view of yourself. Firstly, practicing in front of a mirror. In front of your mirror, you can check your posture. You can check how you play, if you look like Quasimodo, or if you play with good posture. And you can also check in front of a mirror how your fingers move, how they're supposed to move, how the mechanic of the playing should go. Then, filming yourself. Everybody has a cell phone these days. I know some of you don't, but I encourage you to find a way to film yourself and to record yourself so you can see the progress you've made. And if you don't see improvement in your playing, then you should ask yourselves, am I asking myself the right questions when I'm practicing? If you don't see progress in like a few months of videos, then you can ask yourself, am I having the right mindset? Am I asking myself the good questions? Am I practicing effectively and at appropriate times? Am I using the good techniques, or am I practicing techniques that are related to the songs I like and I want to learn? And then, am I getting myself honest to myself? Because you're practicing for yourself and not for anybody else. And if you get a teacher, and I always have this, a few couple of students that come to me and say, I didn't practice this week and everything. And that's what I say to them is that it's on them. You're practicing for yourself and for yourself to improve. And if you have the right mindset and you see progress in the videos you film periodically, then you know you're on the right track to be a rock star.